I've kind of adopted the tagline of we want our team to be sad when they leave.
We welcome Erik Porter, who is the head coach of the University of Mary Marauders out in Bismarck, North Dakota. We've had Erik on a couple different times, but I want to get his take on the 2026 preseason outlook for this season. Very excited to talk with Erik Porter. Erik, thank you so much for coming on again. It's I believe your third time being like the official guest.
Yeah, I think
Welcome
so too.
back.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
The last time we had our conversation, I brought up the international players on your team and asked who was the furthest away from Bismarck. So I want to start off again with that same question. Of your current players, who do you think lives or is from the place furthest away from Bismarck, North Dakota?
Yeah, I'm gonna go Maha, who is from the Philippines originally. I think that takes the cake by quite a bit.
Yep. You have 3 international players on the squad right now based on your lineup. Mm-hmm. Philippines, 7,485 miles away from Bismarck. You got a Latvian, so she's 4,599, and then a Bolivian, which is 5,025. I don't know why I did first, third, second, but so do you get a little bit of a culture when you're talking with some of these girls of like some differences in culture when it comes to those places?
Yeah, you pick up a lot. I think it's one of the benefits of being involved in tennis and having it be such a global game is you develop these relationships with people from all over the world, and everybody's different. Everybody has a different background, different traditions and norms and things that they see as acceptable or not acceptable. And so absolutely, it's especially this season with all 3 of those international athletes are also newcomers to the team. You learn a lot every day. You kind of get into a groove with your previous groups of athletes, and then you have some new faces and learn just as much all over again.
What are some of those culture pieces that you've learned, or any specific takeaways from those instances?
Yeah, I think for me, the things that come to mind is being most noticeable are just probably communication preferences, like what athletes expect from their coach, I think can definitely change based on your background. And so some players, and this is not necessarily just international either, but getting to those kind of conclusions about, does this player like to be talked to a lot on the court? Do they like to be talked to a lot in practice, right? Oftentimes it's different. And depending on their background or their coaching history or the club setup in their home or their country or wherever their tennis background is from, a lot of times that changes then how I communicate with them too. So that's probably the biggest. Then you have things that come up in conversation all the time too, like I guess names. That's kind of an interesting one. Some of our girls this year and previous years have liked to discuss the difference in like naming conventions between like first, middle, last in the U.S. versus their homes, which is always kind of a fascinating conversation. But stuff like that, it's like team meals are always interesting because something new always comes up in that respect.
Are you at the Mandan Tennis Center right now?
I'm not. No, okay. I'm at UMary.
Nice. I like that big calendar in the back. That's a cool backdrop.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm pretty proud of it. It's a new addition to the cubicle, and helping me stay a little bit more on top of things this year.
There we go. And in one of those cultural pieces that I found when I saw that, the Philippines is 7,400 miles away from Bismarck, I was like, oh, what's interesting about the Philippines that I don't know that I can maybe have Erik ask, what's her name? What's the
Her name
Philippine?
is her name is Maha. That's what she goes by anyway.
Okay.
She has a different given name, but yeah, she goes by Maha.
So you'll have to ask her this and see if
Okay.
she's had this, but there's this Filipino ketchup that's made from bananas rather than like
Oh,
tomatoes.
okay.
So we got that. There's something called the Chocolate Hills in the Philippines where during the dry season they like turn brown, which apparently are real popular. And then another thing was the United States has had military bases on in the Philippines, so have had a pretty rich history with being there and kind of having the U.S. presence on the military side.
Mm-hmm.
So they have things called the jeepneys,
Okay.
and they'll essentially take these old U.S. military jeeps and they'll like decorate them like decked out colors. So I'm
Uh,
curious if those are just like internet things or if those are actual common practices.
yeah. I'll ask her. That's cool.
But primary reason why I wanted to talk with you, Erik, was a little preseason outlook on the Marauders upcoming season.
Yeah.
What do you think's gonna happen for the Marauders in 2026 here?
It'll be an interesting season for sure. 5 out of our 6 lineup spots are new uh, for this year, and all freshmen as well. And so there's so much kind of unpredictability with that. It's hard to say. I I am excited for it. I think what this group has is enthusiasm, which is great, and the dynamic that they've kind of developed as a group has been really fun too. So will that translate to wins? I hope so. Um, but I think our outlook in terms of something a little more concrete is probably middle of the pack in the Northern Sun, which is kind of where we were last year, and so it'll be nice to kind of, I don't know, compete at that same level again with such a young group, and have the understanding that we're trying to build a foundation to keep building on year after year with kind of this same crew. Um, so that's kind of the initial outlook. I think the conference is in a good spot this year. It's Augustana, of course, is the preseason favorite. I was actually just filling out my um, preseason poll picks for the conference before we jumped on. Um, so Augie will be at the top, and then Mankato, Sioux Falls, both really strong programs. Crookston's got a great squad this year. Jamestown, newcomer to college tennis altogether, has got a really good squad, and so, and you can just keep listing down the line. Teams number 2 through 8 or 9 even are really, really close together. And so that makes for a lot of excitement, a little bit of nerves for coaches sometimes, but that's all part of it. It's all good.
Do you worry that Jamestown might steal away from some of your Bismarck recruits just because they're closer?
It's a good question. I would say I'm not worried about it. They Their coach Cam has done a great job coming in and starting a program, and he has, even for next fall, he's signed a handful of local recruits, and he's got a couple on the squad this year too. And so I think that's great, and I think I'm more happy that our local North Dakota kids are still playing college tennis. Of course, there's some that we would have loved to have on our squad too, but I can't be too upset that they're going down the interstate a little bit. So no, not worried. I'd say maybe we have a little friendly competition, but that's part of it. That's fun too.
Yeah, that's a good outlook. And in our previous conversation, I asked you, what do you look for in a player? Like, what are the best qualities? And you mentioned that having a team first mentality was, the primary thing. And then you brought up a couple different other reasons.
Hmm.
But you alluded to it before, saying there's a lot of freshmen on the team. How do you instill that team first mentality in some of these girls? And maybe how do you what kind of activities do you do to promote that sort of team camaraderie?
Yeah, it's a great question. Something I've had to think about a lot. He was a huge lesson learned, I think, from my first year as head coach. Is it's a lot easier to talk about being team first than it is to actually be team first. And if you aren't concrete and realistic about it, it doesn't just happen by itself. And so this year, what we've done in that respect is, I mean, number one, we're still talking about it, right? We just had we have a weekly team meeting on Thursday where we were doing a little lead up into the conference season. And I said something about how, the fall is fun because we get to kind of go to these individual tournaments and do our thing. But in the spring, your responsibility or your only job is to contribute to a team point, right? And so, yes, we still talk about it, but at the same time, we also have done a couple other things this year. And so we actually created something called the Fun Crew on our team, who's responsible for doing things together as a group once per week. And we have more crews, people who are in charge of like travel stuff and like service opportunities and social media and stuff like this. So it's more than just having fun. But we created this, couple people get assigned to this crew, and it rotates throughout the season, so it's not the same people. But they, exactly what it sounds like, they're responsible for making sure the team does something fun together once per week. And then once per month, we try to do what we call program fun, where coaches are involved. University can cover the cost, and we can go do something a little bit more, I guess, business oriented. So like we did an escape room last fall. They had some team movie nights. Just scheduled yesterday. They are wanting to do hot yoga for team fun, and they might think that's fun. I can tell you that I'm dreading doing that. But that's you get the idea. One, it gives them some ownership of, it's not, coach saying, hey, we're going to go hold hands or whatever the cliche, thing is. They're taking the ownership of making sure that they're building this team relationship that we want. So that's a big piece. The other piece is making sure that our practice environment, I think, keeps a focus on the team, even while we're doing, individual stuff. And so we talk a lot about, your practice not being about you, right? It's about your teammate on the other side of the net from you, and how can you make them better as opposed to making yourself better. And the logic there is, if you make your practice about your teammates, then you can make 6 people, 7 people better on any given day. Whereas if you just worry about yourself, you just make that one person better. And so that's another thing where, yeah, maybe a little bit more on the just talking about it side, but I really do try to drive that intention with the things that we're doing. And so it continues to be a work in progress, but I'm excited for now the season to happen and say, okay, are we 6 individuals playing separate sports, or are we one group supporting each other the whole time? So that's how I think we've kind of adjusted and learned and evolved since last year.
So having that ownership part of it, do you think that was more, obviously you're asking some of those girls to, hey, like you're the, the fun, the administrator of the fun part of it, whatnot.
Yeah.
Was that because you have so many freshmen on the team this year, or is that because last year, like, hey, maybe we could have done better here?
A little bit of both. I think having such a new group gives you kind of a blank slate to work with. It's definitely kind of a conclusion or a reflection of last year too, though, where I desperately wanted, this type of dynamic, and it was there, by all means in portions of the team, right? But just not throughout the whole team. And so, um, yeah, I think primarily though, I think it was I saw the necessity of it with such a new group that, hey, you know, uh, Maha and Elizabetta and Natalia, coming in from all these different places, combine that with our other two freshmen. Um, they're not just going to intermix and become friends on accident. And so I knew it was going to take a little bit more conscious effort and mandatory experiences a little bit for things to sort of take off. And I mean, so far, fingers crossed, like I said, they're having a lot of fun. And so, and they're getting along nicely. So that, so far promising.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's cool when coaches trying to develop an internal culture for their team, because I think that is probably the most important part of any team, but also any organizational structure in general, is people wanting to be there and having a purpose of being part of that team.
Yeah, yeah. I've kind of adopted the tagline of we want our team to be sad when they leave,
Mm-hmm.
when they go home for the summer, when they graduate, right? We want their tennis experience to be something that they will miss. And so, yeah, we kind of follow the same philosophy there.
And one way that you enable doing that is raising funds for the University of Mary. And one interesting thing that you did maybe a couple months ago, it was your Giving to Grow, is I got a personal video from you being like, hey, we have this campaign going on, consider potentially donating to the University of Mary program. You don't have any ties to the NSIC anymore. And I was like, no way, this is like the coolest thing, because it's like a personalized message. Like, no one's ever done that. And I'm like, yeah, no doubt. Like, all the times I've stayed out there with Erik Porter at his house or his parents' house um for tournaments and stuff, and then also letting me film some content. I'm like, yeah, no brainer. And then in the mail, I get, well,
There we
actually, these are
go.
both from you, actually.
I love it.
But I got a little, I don't even know what you call that, a little banner, whatnot.
Yeah, a little a pennant, I suppose.
Yeah. So do you have like, alumni that you're, trying to build relationships with? Obviously, like, me, like, probably not a big, chess piece in kind of your game, but are there some like bigger heads that you're trying to like keep constant communication with to, raise funds to help enable this company or team culture and stuff like that?
Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed the video. First of all, it's good to hear that it made an impact. But yes, the answer to your question is yes. Keeping in touch with alumni is a big part. I would say probably not at the constant level yet. Like this time of year, I'm not really thinking about it.
Mhm.
I'm doing on-court stuff. I'm doing travel planning. Um, I'm not as worried about fundraising, with the exception, I guess, of we're doing some business sponsor outreach for some opportunities that we've got coming up this conference season. So that is still in play a little bit. But as far as like personal giving and personal relationships, I'd say I do try to keep connections with a good group of alumni and supporters. But it's more like I embraced that big push in the middle of November or whenever it was.
Mhm.
And so that's the time of year when I'll really kind of rekindle some of those things. Love to get to a spot where I am, keeping in touch more frequently, because I do think that's part of kind of building a program, like you said, is not just fundraising from alumni, but getting to know alumni. And you know, the tennis community is small. Um, I didn't even, uh, I know most of the alumni already, from Marauders tennis, both the women's team, um, and then UMary had a men's team from about 1988 to 2010. So I know a fair amount of those gentlemen as well. Um, but even the ones I don't, sending an email, sending a text, introducing myself, I think that's part of being a college coach too, is building those relationships, because those people, whether or not they end up giving to your program down the road, at least they'll be engaged in the program, and follow our box scores and see when we're doing well, or and things like that. So yeah, it's fun. It's not something that, it's not the first thing you think of when you say, oh, I'm going to be a college sports coach, is doing fundraising, doing outreach and stuff like this. But it's enjoyable for me. I like doing it. I like sending personal stuff to people, so it makes it worth it.
How was the success of your Give to Grow campaign?
Good. Yeah. So we had a goal of 24,000 for our program, and that's a year-long goal, not just the big push during our single day kind of experience. But yeah, we're sitting at about 20,000 right now. So just a few thousand more to go. I don't see us having an issue getting the last little bit. We've got some sponsorships coming in. I already mentioned, doing some additional asking of businesses, and so yeah, we're gonna reach it, which feels good. I think, whenever you do a big project like this, you always take notes, and what can you do different for next year. And I think, it's a bright future for us, and in terms of how we can support our program financially. You've seen the news about college tennis programs kind of dropping like flies each year, and I think the financial component plays a role in that. And I feel very fortunate, number one, to be at a place where they've said, hey, we're going to support tennis, but also to give us the opportunity to support ourselves and say, hey, if we do well with this, this becomes a program enhancement. It doesn't just go back into the general, athletic department fund. And so that's really, really cool. And I think it's just things to invest in more, invest more time and effort, I should say, and turn us into a situation where we're not just we're not a charity case for the university, but we're actually doing good and providing value to the university. So that's what excites me about it.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, you and me both can probably speak to this experience a little bit, but we both went to college at Concordia College, where, funding wasn't probably the greatest for the tennis program. But for me, as a motivation factor, like, if I ever like hit the lottery, like struck it big, or even with what I'm doing right now with giving back through like media and doing stuff and trying to highlight their program stuff, are small ways to kind of give back. And, maybe you don't need to self-fund or be, like you said, a charity case. There's other ways to add value to the program. And yeah, clearly you're working to do that, which is super cool. What are your biggest goals going into this 2026 season? You thought you maybe middle of the pack is kind of where you guys would end up. What's the best case scenario? Where do you think you could end up if you guys just had a rocking year?
Wow. Yeah, I think a third or fourth place finish would be really, really strong for us. I think that would be a really successful season. In terms of goals, though, I think this year is a little bit, a little bit interesting in terms of where my goals are at as a coach. I've been really zoning in on practice quality, as kind of just a short, you hear all this talk about process goal versus outcome goal and that sort of thing. And yeah, I'm kind of thinking about it the same way, but just in terms of where's the most value that I add as a coach, and I think that's in the practice. We do it the most. We spend, it's probably probably 150 hours or more just in the spring season in practice. And so with that in mind, my goal is to make practice the best part of our team's day. Not only enjoyment, but also like they can feel themselves improving. And that's a little bit daunting. I love practice. I love picking out drills to do, and it's super super fun for me. But to be able to cross that threshold of, okay, no, it's not just enjoyable for me, but it's actually making a difference in our team, and I can see it in their level. Their ratings are slowly starting to climb throughout the season. That's where my goal is focused. And so I don't have a metric necessarily for that. I would love it if I did. It would make it a lot easier to track. But yeah, super super focused on practice quality this year, and making sure that it's a continuous benefit and not just a chore for the team. So that's one. I guess a recurring goal that I have each year is to, and not anything to do with on the court stuff even, but I just want to make sure that our team has a 5-star experience with the program. And so that means that I got to make sure that I am organized when it comes to traveling, places to eat, places to stay, things to do, kind of the everything else aspect. Are our team meetings organized? Or are they, just a free for all where I'm not prepared, they're not prepared type of deal? And I think that all adds up to, again, that same sad to leave aspect. And that was one thing that we saw from our group last year is it was a really, really good group of seniors, and they were all very, very grateful, and, wishing they could do it again. And so that was a good signal for me to keep doing what I'm doing, but also take what I learned and double down on it and make sure that our players are cared for, which is, throughout the university, that's a huge talking point, that we want to take good care of our teams. And we do. And so that's always a goal for me too, is make sure that we are giving them a great experience.
Mm-hmm. And part of that great experience is, the Mandan Tennis Center, your home courts. So I follow Luz Mary Diaz, who plays for the Moorhead Dragons, and also Shaylin, who's an assistant coach for Moorhead. And I was super surprised that they only had one home weekend, like 2 home matches total, which I was like, what? Like, this is crazy. How many home matches do you guys play out at the out in Mandan there?
So we've got 3. So pretty much the same situation. We scheduled a non-conference match with Gustavus here for our first match of the year in a couple of weeks. So we do have one extra, but yeah, the way the Northern Sun scheduling works out, you have a travel partner, right? And so you play 2 of your home matches at your travel partner's home site. And so this year's our travel partner is Jamestown, and so we play 2 of what's considered our home matches there. And so that's where the number shrinks a little bit. So yeah, it makes it a little bit tough. Out of 10 conference matches, just having 2 at home. But I think it gives us a good opportunity at the same time to make those 2 matches a really cool, again, experience. And so I'm hoping to do a little bit of promotion and push for some engagement and participation in our home matches. This one in February too, a little bit shorter lead up for that one. So that one will probably be a little bit less engaged, but the other 2 that we have are in April. And so we've got 3 good months to prepare and make sure that those are on people's radar. Yeah, but you're exactly right. When it comes to stirring up some excitement about college tennis, it really helps to have matches at home. And so, you know, something that we're looking at for the future is more non-conference matches. We've got a handful of available weekends each year that a lot of um, some teams will go travel to stronger programs during that time. But I would, as we build our program, love to bring teams in. Not everybody wants to travel to North Dakota, so there's ways to make it logical and make sense for these other programs. But that's what I want to do. Is yeah, instead of 2 or 3 home matches, I'd love to have um, 5 or 6 each year, and just continue building the community around the team. I think that makes a big difference.
Is there any additions to the Man and Tennis Center in terms of like marketing appeal or like at Courts Plus, that's the home, or I would consider like my home club.
Mm-hmm.
Being in Fargo, I live in Moorhead, and they have like newspaper clippings and different things. But I think they could do a much better job at like hyping up the local college team, like the MSU Dragons
Mm-hmm.
and the Cobbers, having something that just shows like who these people are, because then like younger kids like see that stuff and they're like, oh, like that's cool, like, and they look at the pictures and stuff, or like teams who are coming in, like, okay, like they actually like value this team. When I go to Gustavus, it's like, oh my gosh, like, you have their banner for the year, I
Mm-hmm.
think, at least from my experience, where they have all their pictures,
Yep.
and it's like, oh cool, this is their home facility. Do you do
Yep.
anything that makes it the University of Mary Marauders home facility?
Yeah, we try to put as much Marauders stuff up as we can. So each of our courts inside has a little Marauders flag or banner um, that stays the same each year. It just has the logo on it, and that hangs from our scoreboard. Um, but we've also got like um, we hang up our team posters in the lobby and on the front door and stuff like that. So yeah, we want people to know that we practice and play there. And what's also nice is our practice times right now are kind of in the middle of the afternoon. Um, and so people see us. We always wear Marauders gear to practice in, and so youth lessons are going on at the same time. Um, pickleball is being played at the same time, and so we get to wave and catch the eyes of people playing, which is a nice um, a nice advantage. The other thing that um, is not directly connected to you, Mary, but you mentioned facility amenity. We actually we just bought a play site subscription,
Mm.
and so I'm really excited about that for the live streaming benefits that it'll bring. So, uh, we've live streamed on YouTube in the past. We've had the camera capability, but we haven't had scoreboard capability. And now with PlaySite, we'll be able to update the scores live, and so people watching will be able to follow not only just the straight footage, but have a connection to see how the match is progressing. So that's another uh, connection to the facility. I mean, it's the facility's um, purchase, right? Um, and so being able to play and practice at a play, like we get to record all our practice footage, and I get to comb through that if there's something that I want to look back at. Um, Things like that make a huge difference, and so we're very very fortunate to play and practice at our bubble. um, it's really really good. Other we also put up like a team area in the women's locker room to be just for you, Mary. I call it the VIP lounge, VIP player lounge, I should say. Uh, it is in reality just kind of a storage area, but um, they can hang their bags up in there. We've got our extra shirts and gear uh, in there, and so they can own the space a little bit and hang out there before practice and mess around and joke and do whatever they need to do. So stuff like that makes a big difference too.
Yeah, I'm super intrigued about the play site. I remember in college, we went down to Orlando, and the USTA National Center or National Campus had play site, and I never like did a subscription down there. But more recently, in the last probably 2 or 3 years for myself, I've been recording matches, and I use Swing Vision, and there's like so much stuff. I like Swing Vision for a lot of different reasons, but there's some glaring issues with Swing Vision as well.
Mhm.
And its scalability for like a team would be impossible with the amount of effort that I put into it. But yeah, I'm kind of curious on how your takeaways at the end of the season. I'll definitely follow up on how you like PlaySite and
Yeah.
how the viewer experience is for your fans as well. But yeah, to wrap up here, Erik, I always end the interviews with if you have any specific shout outs. So I will end this one with do you have any specific shout outs that you would like to give, Erik?
Oh, man. Gosh, well, shout out Backyard Tennis.
So
always a pleasure to be back on the channel. I'd say shout out to everybody. We were talking about fundraising earlier. We had over, I think we're up over 140 gifts for this cycle that we're on. So shout out everybody that was willing to be generous with us and contribute to our team's success. Shout out to the University of Mary. It's a really great place to work. So always got to express some gratitude to them. And I'll do a shout out to the old man, Tracy Porter, for making sure Mandan Tennis Center is a great place to practice and play. Shout out to the team as well. A lot of fun people that I get a chance to work with all the time. So that's my list.
There we go. My shout out is you for spending your time and doing this. Thank you so much, Erik Porter.
You bet.
Ding dong day.